Hello, how are you? Today I'm going to talk to you about the relationship between oats and blood sugar control. A lot of people ask me this. If oatmeal will raise blood sugar, what's the best type of oats to eat, the best time to have them, and the best combinations? You're going to love this video, and there's even a special tip for you to pay attention to. Stay until the end because you won't want to miss it. If you love tips about nutrition, health, and fitness, you're going to love this channel. So go ahead and subscribe. Remember to turn on the notification bell to get updates. I have new videos every day, and you're going to love them. So let's start talking about the relationship between eating oats and blood sugar levels. Many people get really worried. Some, including those who have diabetes, say they can't eat oats anymore because they've heard that oats are bad for you, that they raise your blood sugar. I'm going to explain all of this to you. I'll also talk about the precautions you should take, the best type of oats for you to eat, combinations. You're going to love this video. Remember, I also have other videos talking about foods and blood sugar. I have videos about milk and blood sugar, eggs and blood sugar. If there's any other food you'd like to know about in terms of its effect on blood sugar, let me know down below. I always read the comments. Maybe you'll bring up a great idea and I can help you out by giving some tips for your daily life. By the way, if you already like this topic of blood sugar, leave a like so I know you enjoyed it, and I'll make more videos like this for you. A lot of people worry about blood sugar control when eating oats, because oats are one of those foods that everyone likes. The taste is very pleasant, and it's really easy to include in your daily routine. And it has an interesting source of carbohydrates. Yes, it's a food rich in carbohydrates, and most of its energy comes from carbs. And many people get worried. They really like oats. They'd like to add oats. I make several recipes with oats here, and some people wonder if they can be eaten by those who are diabetic or by people who have higher blood sugar, who are pre-diabetic. So it's really important to mention that, first of all, there's a big difference between the types of oats you can consume. This is already an important detail for you to pay attention to. When we look at oats in the supermarket, there are basically 4 types of oats that are sold in your typical supermarket. The most basic is rolled oats, which are the flakes themselves. Whether thin flakes or thick flakes, they're in flake form. So that's one type of oat you can buy to consume, and I'll explain it to you. Oat flour is usually made from these oat flakes, which are processed and ground until they become a flour. And you can even make oat flour at home yourself. If you buy thin or thick rolled oats and blend them in a blender, they'll turn into flour. So oat flour is nothing more than whole oats that have been ground. And there's also oat bran, which is more related to the outer part, the husk of the oat. So, comparatively, oat bran will have less net carbohydrates than rolled oats and oat flour because it's more related to the outer part of the oat husk, so to speak. So even though it contains carbohydrates, it also has a lot of fiber. And I've already told you here in other videos that when we analyze the amount of carbohydrates in a food, we take the total amount of carbohydrates, subtract the amount of fiber, and we get the amount of net carbohydrates, which are the carbohydrates that will actually be absorbed by your intestine. So, the amount of net carbohydrates, that is, subtracting the fiber from oat bran, is lower than in rolled oats and oat flour. That's already an important point. I just mentioned 3 types, but earlier I said there were 4. That's because nowadays it's also very common to find flavored oats on the market. Oats with chocolate flavor, banana flavor, strawberry flavor, and so on. You definitely shouldn't consume these oats because they have added sugar and other ingredients like chocolate, strawberry, dehydrated banana, and so on. So if you want to control your blood sugar, you definitely shouldn't consume this type of oat. You can consume the other types of oats I mentioned, either flakes, bran, or flour, but if you can, prioritize bran as it will be more beneficial for you. Another interesting point is what combinations to make with your oats, because I've already told you that oats are basically a source of carbohydrates. They also contain protein and fiber, which is why their carbohydrates have a lower glycemic index. We can't even compare bread made with oats, even if it's made with oat flour, to bread made with white flour. They are very different things, both nutritionally and in terms of their impact on blood sugar. Even if you make bread with oat flour, the impact on your blood sugar will be less than that of white flour bread. So that's something we should already understand. But in any case, it's also interesting for us to talk about what to combine with your oats, because I gave the example of bread here, but some people use oats for cooking, while many people use oats to add to yogurt, to put in milk, to mix with fruit. So one thing I see a lot is people saying that when they eat oats, their blood sugar rises a lot. This depends on what you eat the oats with, because no one just takes a spoonful of oats and puts it in their mouth. Since it's dry, you can't do that. If you add banana, oats, and honey, of course your blood sugar will go up, because both banana and honey have a lot of carbohydrates. They're natural foods, they're healthy foods, but for those who want to control their blood sugar, that's a lot of carbs, especially together with the oats. So be careful with combinations. Since oats are already a source of carbs, they don't go well with more carbohydrates. Ideally, you should combine it with protein. For example, you can mix it with yogurt, or you can mix it with any type of milk you prefer. Remember, I have a video here talking about milk and blood sugar. I'll leave it down below in the description for you. You can even mix it with some delicious cheese or creamy ricotta if you're making a skillet bread, or even with some fluffy eggs if you're preparing a pancake. So protein, in its various forms, goes really well with oats because it significantly helps to lower their glycemic index even further, making them a more balanced and sustained energy source. And always remember to add some type of healthy fat or beneficial fiber. So for example, you've made your wholesome bread or your nutritious egg and oat pancake. You can add some avocado mayo. You can add a bit of chia seeds to mix into the batter, which will bring fiber and healthy fats depending on the combinations you choose, or drizzle a little olive oil on top. Always try to lower its glycemic index even further. That will be beneficial for you. Remember that I have a video here on the channel explaining more about what the glycemic index is, in case you're not quite sure. Remember that the glycemic index is related to the speed at which carbohydrates are absorbed, which helps control your blood sugar. So if you want to know more about it, there's a video here, just so this video doesn't get too long. Another point to pay attention to when consuming oats in your daily routine is the amount of oats you eat. Because if you want to control your blood sugar, you already know that the nutrient that will have the greatest impact on your blood sugar is carbohydrates. So it's the nutrient you need to be most careful with on a daily basis. You don't necessarily have to follow a low-carb diet, but know that it can indeed help a lot of people who live with diabetes or are pre-diabetic because there will be less fluctuation in blood glucose. But you don't necessarily have to follow a low-carb diet. You can simply control the amount of carbohydrates and prioritize good sources. And oats fit into this context, especially oat bran. But be careful with the amount because even so, it is still a source of carbohydrates. So it's the same reasoning we have with sweet potatoes, brown rice, whole wheat pasta, quinoa. They're all carbohydrates. So you can consume it, but be careful with the amount. Just because it's oat bran doesn't mean you can put 5 tablespoons in your shake. So watch the quantity. Of course, the amount will depend on each person, on whether or not they exercise during the day, and on the rest of their diet. But always remember to measure. Don't just dump a whole package of oats into your shake or on top of your yogurt. Start measuring because that way you have better control over how much you're consuming. Still talking about oats and why they can be consumed by people who want to control their blood sugar, yes, one of their benefits is that they help improve the feeling of satiety. So, we know that people who have higher, less controlled blood sugar levels tend to feel very hungry, and oats really help with the feeling of fullness. They keep us feeling satisfied, so we don't end up snacking between meals, and that's a really good thing. Oats, on their own, help lower the glycemic index of a meal, because as I mentioned, they contain fiber and protein. So that's an interesting point. It's a good source of protein for you to include in your diet. And there are studies that have even shown that oats can improve insulin sensitivity compared to other carbohydrates that don't contain beta-glucan. The beta-glucan present in oats also helps improve insulin sensitivity, which is always an important point. Of course, it's not like you can eat oats and then go overboard with a tub of ice cream or a chocolate bar. That's not the idea, but rather to have a proper, balanced diet. Remember that I have a video here on the channel talking about how to organize your diet, the diabetics meal plan, and everything else. I'll leave it down below for you. But with a balanced diet, it can help you improve insulin resistance in a complementary way. And as I mentioned, it contains beta-glucan, which helps lower cholesterol. And we know that many people living with diabetes need to be extra careful with their cholesterol to avoid cardiovascular problems. So it really is a great combo for those living with diabetes, as long as you pay attention to the amount you consume and make good combinations in your daily routine. Remember that I have more videos here on the channel talking about oats. Oats for weight loss, oats for gaining muscle mass, different types of oats, what happens when we eat oats every day, and a playlist with oat recipes, both sweet and savory. I'll leave all of that down below in the description for you. Let me know down below if you have the habit of eating oats in your daily life and what your favorite oat recipe is. I'd love to see your comment. Remember to like the video because it really helps me out, and share this video with anyone you know who would enjoy it or who needs it. Let's work together to grow this chain of good because that's what I want here on the channel. See you next time. Bye.